I've lived in Washington, D.C. since the year 2008. Back then, I was a college student, and my world revolved around my campus. After college, I entered the workforce, and of course, I explored the city whenever I could. But vacations were usually spent elsewhere, mostly overseas. Enter 2020, the year that travel shut down. For me, however, it was the year that I explored my city more than ever before. In 2020, I photographed more sunrises and sunsets in Washington, D.C. than ever before. I discovered new places, tried out different kinds of photography, chased lightning and storms. Rush hour traffic disappeared, or at least got a lot lighter, making it easier to head downtown for sunsets. Parking restrictions and ticketing was no longer a thing, which again made it easier to photograph the city at pretty much any time. The crowds, they were out at Shenandoah or in more rural areas that people thought would be safer. This just meant that cities were emptier than usual. So as 2020 progressed, I took my camera and explored my own city like I was a tourist, over and over and over again. Before 2020, I spent a great deal of time photographing corporate events that sometimes sucked the joy out of photography. Photos of people in suits, holding wine glasses and networking. But sitting in the city at sunrise, creating 4K time lapses or long exposures, it returned that love of photography to me. In 2020, I watched as spring arrived in the city. And although the tidal basin closed down due to overcrowding, trees everywhere started to blossom, bringing a little bit of joy to the city during difficult times. Later that year, I embarked on a 7-day sunrise challenge to photograph the city in the early morning hours before work. The quietness was enchanting, even when there was no sunrise to be seen. After that, I decided to photograph as many sunsets as I could. I found myself outside almost every evening for a month, walking around, making time lapses, taking photos. Not every day produced great images, but what it did do is give me a feeling of fulfillment and happiness. And of course, as we all know, 2020 was a year that Washington, D.C. was in the news a lot. And yes, it had its turbulent moments. But most of the time, the city is a beautiful place with lots of green spaces and quiet corners where you'll see people biking, running, picnicking, taking walks, and of course, taking photos. Photography is not so much about the end result. Well, unless of course you're hired, and in that case the end result is quite important. But anyway, they say the journey is more important than the destination. Some photos will be great, others will be average. Some might not even be worth sharing with anybody, but the act of going out and taking those photos is always worth something. So, with that being said, I think it's time that I go find my winter coat and head outside and take some photos, because I have spent way too much time inside this month, and I'll definitely feel better if I head out there with my camera. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel if you are new here, and I'll see you in the next video.